Maryland's Billy Edwards has entered the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net, so make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. Maryland's Billy Edwards has entered the transfer portal. So this week has been absolutely filled with huge news, whether it was getting Zion Ely during the weekend or all the players leaving Maryland football. There's been a lot of news this week. It's a big news. It's a portal time. There's a lot to talk about. But I don't know if there has been, besides the Zion Ely commitment, I don't know if there's been a bigger story surrounding Maryland football than Billy Edwards deciding to leave Maryland football. And I have a couple different stances on this. I think one, I want to start off by saying this. It definitely hurts the Terps to lose Billy Edwards. It definitely hurts Maryland football to lose Billy Edwards. I think having experienced guys, even with Malik Washington coming up next year, I think having an experienced guy back in the quarterback room next year, Billy Edwards being back in that room would really help relieve some of the pressure off of Malik Washington and some of those other things, and allowing him to really be able to step into that new role. I think it definitely hurts in terms of having a guy next year that we know that we can start off the season if Washington's not ready, in those different things. I think it definitely hurts Maryland football. But I don't think it kills us by any means. We have the quarterback of our future, but I just think this story is a really interesting one. The fact that we lost Billy Edwards. I think this year, Billy had an up and down year, to be frank. It was an up and down year. I thought there were games where he played at a really high level, and then I thought there were other games where he didn't play that great. I thought he kind of went back and forth between having a good year to having a he started off with having kind of a good year, and then it went to he's okay, to he's having he had a good game here, and then it's a bad game stretch. So I think it was a very inconsistent year, to say the least. I thought he put up some big performances to start the year. Like, I thought he's played really well against Michigan State early on the year. He brought us back against UVA. Had a solid stat line against Indiana. I thought played really well against USC to get us that win. I thought Rutgers, he did some good things starting the football, but was still inconsistent. But I think overall, how I kind of see Billy Edwards as a player is someone that's a middle-ish Big Ten quarterback. He's a middle Big Ten quarterback. He's not going to be one of your top guys that are projected to go top in the draft or in the Heisman race like a Dylan Gabriel, or a lot of people are looking at Drew Aller. As I just read an article or something on Twitter that said he looks like the NFL scouts are saying he can be the next Jared Goff type, and he has first-round talent. He's not that, or he's not the number one recruit in the nation, like that kid, Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. He's a middle-ish, solid Big Ten quarterback that around a good team, which we haven't seen him be around, because this first full year as a starter for Maryland football, we had a lot of problems. But around a good team, he can definitely be a good, solid, middle-ish Big Ten quarterback. But I don't think he's the type of guy that elevates your team. I don't think he elevates kind of what a team is going to do. I don't think he's like that type of guy that's going to elevate the talent on your team. And so it's a big reason why I think losing him definitely hurts, because it definitely gave us a solid veteran option in the quarterback room that now we no longer really have, that has a year of experience and all those different things. And I think that definitely hurts. But I also think it doesn't kill us, because I don't think he's a guy that elevates us. I don't think he's going to have I don't think he would have even gotten the full year to start next year for Maryland football. Now, the interesting part about it, there's a couple different things that we talk about that are interesting. Mike Locksley said a couple weeks ago he expects Billy Edwards to be back. He said that in a press conference a couple weeks ago that he expected Billy Edwards to be back and to be the starter again next year. But clearly, that's not what has happened. That's not what's going to happen. And money talks. Money does talk. And there's this huge storyline with Billy Edwards going to Michigan, and he's predicted to go to Michigan. A lot of people have logged that prediction. So clearly it's something, because these recruiting people, they usually know what they're talking about when they're talking about players and where they're going to go and all those different things. They usually have a pretty good idea on where the player is going to go. And I've heard different rumblings that Michigan's giving Billy Edwards a bag. And I'm confused. To be completely honest, I'm confused. I'm like, Michigan, you just had an entire year of having mediocre quarterback play, having to go back and forth between a couple different guys, and then ending up starting the walk-on kid who wasn't that good. Like, I don't know what their kind of thought process is, especially with that kid, the Bryce Underwood kid, who everyone says, I don't know if you guys seen the story about the Bryce Underwood kid, number one recruit in the nation. They say he's the next big time thing. They flipped him from LSU. All these different things about the Bryce Underwood kid, about him getting $7 million or something like that to go play quarterback at Michigan, 5-star in the 2025 class, number one recruit in the nation, arguably, and is probably going to be a star realistically. He's going to Michigan. And so they were able to get him. And so I just don't really get Michigan adding Billy Edwards, because I feel like they wouldn't want another mediocre Big Ten quarterback. And that goes back to my other point. He's not a guy that's going to elevate Michigan. He's not a guy that's going to be a lot different from what they have. I think he's a little better than what they have, but I don't think he's like dramatically better. I don't think he's a type of guy that Michigan would necessarily like, oh yeah, like right away he hops in the portal, we want to get him. And there's been rumblings that Michigan's offering him like $1 million. And hey, I cannot hate Billy Edwards for leaving Maryland if Michigan is offering him $1 million. If that's true and that's the NIL that they're willing to give him, I say go. Because here's the thing about Edwards. I don't know what his NFL future looks like, and I don't know if he even has one. Maybe he can go to Michigan and do some special things and look good and put some good stuff on film, and maybe he has a chance. But right now, where he stands, he's not an NFL quarterback. So if Michigan's offering you $1 million, you go to Michigan and take the $1 million and put that away for savings to start your career and for the rest of your life. Like, that's money you can't deny. It's one thing when you have guys that are knowing they're going to the NFL, knowing that they're going to be first, second round type picks, that type of talent. But when you have a guy like Billy Edwards, you have no idea what your NFL future holds. I think it makes sense for you if Michigan's offering you $1 million or 800,000 or something like that. You have to go and take that money because you got to get something out of this. And I know Maryland wasn't giving him $1 million, and I don't think that would make sense. And I don't really get why Michigan would give him $1 million. Just other portal QBs, it doesn't feel like Billy Edwards would be one of the top portal quarterbacks out there. But apparently, Michigan feels like he's a good guy to add, which I just think is a little bit weird. I don't want to say he didn't have a good year because it's hard to gauge, it's hard to judge, and he might go to Michigan and kill it for a year before having to leave and give the keys off to Bryce Underwood. But my thing is, we just don't know exactly, but it does feel like there's better options in the portal. And I say we don't know because Maryland's offensive line, one of the worst in the Big Ten. Maryland's running game, not good. One of the bottom ones in the Big Ten. Maryland, sure, they had some receivers, but that was it. Poor offensive line, poor running game. We didn't set Billy Edwards up for success. So how good was he going to end up actually being? That's my thing about Billy Edwards. That's why it's hard to gauge actually how good he was potentially going to be because we just don't know because he just wasn't put around a good enough team. And he's gonna get to go to Michigan, and if he gets opportunity to play, then he's going to be able to flourish potentially with a top offensive line and a top run game. You might not have a top end receiving core, but their receivers aren't going to be bad. They still recruit at a pretty high level, which is, I think, could end up helping him. But I also think there's a chance he goes and Bryce Underwood wins that job and he just doesn't play. Like, I think there's definitely an opportunity that happens, but I think that if he knows that he's getting that 1 million, I think he's going to take that no matter what. He's also visiting Wisconsin, I think it was, which is another interesting spot, which seems a little bit more, which would align more to kind of what I would, what would make sense in my head, I feel like. Instead of Michigan, I feel like Michigan's in this NIL era where they're going to go after a lot of the top guys and throw a lot of money at them. And Edwards isn't one of the top guys. He just isn't in the portal. I wouldn't say he is. So I do think it's interesting, but I wonder if this Michigan thing actually comes into fruition and it's actually what ends up happening. The predictions are usually right, so I'm going to go with that, but we'll see exactly what happens. What is next with the quarterback room? What is the future now? Talk about that next. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I have been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on tickets right at the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So now that Billy Edwards has entered the portal, there's a lot of different things to talk about for what's next for Maryland football. I think, of course, you're going to say good luck to Billy Edwards, but after he leaves, there's not much else we have to do with him. Unless he goes to Michigan, we might play him next year if he maintains the job for that long, but I honestly think that's going to be hard to do. Like, they're saying this Bryce Underwood kid is like, they're saying one of the best quarterback prospects ever. I saw a little thing that was like, it was somebody on ESPN saying he's better than Trevor Lawrence as a prospect, better than Justin Fields, better than Bryce Young, like all these different guys they were saying he's better than, and he looks pretty good. So we play Michigan later on in the season. Could Billy Edwards hold him off that long? I don't know. But the future of Maryland football now, the quarterback position changes a little bit. Of course, we know we have our four-star quarterback, most underrated quarterback in the 2025 class in Malik Washington, and we know him as a talent, and we knew he was overall the future of this program. And now it opens up even more of a door for Malik Washington to potentially come in and play right away, because it's like, who else is going to play over him right now? I think Malik Washington definitely, as it shapes up right now, if we started today, he's probably the starter for Maryland football if we had to go out there and play a game today. And so I think it opens up the door for him potentially playing right away, which I think Mike Locksley kind of wanted to shy away from, which honestly makes sense. I'm all for playing guys if they're ready, but what if Malik Washington comes in and needs a little bit more time to learn the offense? Or I don't want to put him in there with a poor offensive line. It's similar to what they talk about in the NFL. They have this conversation. It's like, do you want to play a rookie quarterback? The offensive line's not the best. He might not be ready to play yet. He might be the most talented kid you have, but is he ready to go? Is playing him going to ruin him? That's definitely something to think about, and something that I think Mike Locksley is thinking about. And I think that's a big reason why he was like, Billy Edwards is going to come back. Billy Edwards is coming back to Maryland, and that's going to benefit the Terps. But now it looks like, doesn't look like, he's definitely in the portal, and he's definitely probably gone. And so I think it's like Malik's door to play as a freshman is definitely open. But is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? He could come in and start playing at a pretty high level. But as a freshman, you're probably going to struggle. That's just the way it is. Dylan Raiola, the Nebraska quarterback, I like to use him as example, had an up and down year, had a hot start, just up and down, had good games, bad games. It's just what happens when you're a freshman quarterback in the Big Ten. You play some of the top defenses in the country, you play some of the top teams in the country. I do think Maryland's schedule next year is beneficial to Malik Washington potentially playing early because we don't play that many tough teams. Like I said we play what? We play like Michigan is the toughest team. Outside of Michigan, it's definitely not murderer's row over there in our schedule next year. So I do think it benefits that. I also think it helps that Washington's going to be here in the spring. That's huge for a quarterback and a guy like Malik Washington, for him to really get ahead, because if he came just for summer ball and then leading up into the season, that's really hard to do. But the fact he's going to be here the entire spring, he's going to be there for a lot of the install stuff, all those different things that they do in the spring, that really puts you ahead and really puts you on track to play. I think that's also big and really will help him potentially playing pretty early next season. But there's another side of this, and it's like there's two things I want to talk about. First, MJ Morris. We don't know what he's doing yet. I don't know if he's entering I really do think Morris is entering the portal. I do, even if he hasn't came out with it yet. I doubt that he's back next year. I really do believe. I doubt it. I just think that I don't think it makes sense for him to come back next year. He has too many more years of eligibility, where he still has a couple years of eligibility where Malik Washington ain't sitting for more than a year. And probably more than half a season. Like, he's just not. And so MJ Morris could stay, but then he knows he's probably gonna have to enter the transfer portal next year, or he might feel that he can play good enough to win the job and to keep it. Maybe, but I doubt that he thinks like that. I really believe he'll end up entering the portal, and I think that makes sense for him. But he hasn't said anything yet, so who knows in today's game and in today's day. But I do think that'll happen soon, and I would highly suggest to him to enter the portal. But this is my other side to it. We got to add a quarterback, I think. We got to add a quarter. They don't have to be someone amazing. They don't have to be a top end type of guy. Like, there's some really good players out there. There's guys like Duke Malik Murphy and Miller Moss, that some of the teams that just don't have a quarterback are looking to add. And I think Malik Washington is good, but we don't want to depend on him right away. What I've been kind of talking about with him, we want him to come in, feel comfortable, not feel like he has to play immediately, which I think is something that we don't want to put that pressure on him. I do think that he's going to play eventually next year, but I think adding a veteran in that room, and I think that's what Mike Locksley thought Billy Edwards was going to be, but now I think we got to go into the portal and get somebody capable of playing. It's going to be tough, though, because you're going to look at the Maryland team, and a lot of transfer quarterbacks are probably going to be like, no, I see the situation. You have your guy. He's just young. You're going to end up playing him. And so that's what kind of concerns me. And it's like, are we going to be forced to play Malik Washington right away? Which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. We just don't know yet. So I think that could be interesting. But I do think that's the other side of the story, where we don't have anyone else in that quarterback room. Cameron Edge is gone. MJ Morris probably going to be gone. Billy Edwards is gone now, probably to Michigan or to Wisconsin. And it's like, who else are we going to have in that room? And I do think that that's something we have to think about. Let's talk about a little portal update. Who has Maryland extended offers to? We'll talk about that next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in the NFL, all in one place. So when you get the hunch to move a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. There's so many different things to bet on FanDuel right now, whether it's the NFL and on the NFL Sunday. you want to bet on FanDuel, or it's college football with the college football playoff coming up, or if it's college basketball, there's so many different things you can bet on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I want to give you guys a quick 5-minute portal update. Who are the guys in the portal that we're offering? I did a little bit of research, see who we're offering, see what's going on. So these are some of the guys that are visiting and some people that we're looking at. Grant Leaper, tight end from Iowa, is expected to visit Maryland. He's a 2023. I guess he was a redshirt last year. Didn't play last year, but was a 3-star prospect. The number 27th ranked tight end. Was at Iowa, 6'5", 248. And I look at our tight end room, I think we could use a bigger type of body. We got to start thinking about the future. Preston Howard's not going to be here forever. Dylan Wade's still pretty young, but some of these guys are getting older, and I think I think we kind of lacked tight end depth last year, and that's something that could really help, is if we add a kid like Grant Leaper. I think that could help. I don't know exactly what his game looks like, to be completely honest. But I do think adding in another tight end, and Iowa knows how to recruit tight ends. So if you're going to Iowa as a tight end, you're probably a pretty good player. Probably definitely a guy that Iowa felt pretty good about. So I think he's the guy that could really help solidify our tight end depth, someone that we absolutely need, and someone that's been in the Big Ten program, which I think is important as well. I think that's important because we don't want all these guys coming from smaller programs that aren't used to Big Ten football. But I think bringing someone from Iowa, where they're a physically dominant type of team, they like to run the ball, I think that could be something that could help bring in a guy that's been there for a year, that has a red shirt, so still has 4 years. I do think that that's something that could help. We also have been looking at this kid, Javen James, which I think definitely he went to Akron. He's an offensive tackle, definitely somebody that we could use. Offensive line, I'm welcoming all offensive line. I did say this. I have been saying this. I didn't want to bring in a whole new portal offensive line, and it's like we got 5 new starters. They're all transfers. I don't want it to be like that. But I do want us to bring in a couple guys out of the portal that are good, high-level players. And I think this offensive tackle, Javen James, is a pretty good player coming from Akron. And I think definitely a guy that we want to look at. Was a 3-star prospect out of high school and has been doing some good things at Akron. So I definitely think he's potentially a guy that we could look at that could make a lot of sense. And somebody that we definitely could use right now. And I just want help on that offensive line, because right now it's obviously pretty horrible right now. And then there's another cornerback that we're looking at. We obviously know corner's a huge need with this kid, Jordy Lowry, which I think could be an interesting type of get. Went to West Carolina, another guy from a smaller type program, but he's a Florida kid, 5'11", 190, definitely a good guy to probably go after. I don't know a ton about these kids' games. I just don't, but this is just giving you guys an update. I'm guessing if we're offering him, that he's a pretty good player. And then if Maryland's interested, that he put up together some really good film and stuff like that. And we obviously have a weakness in the secondary, and we need to fill probably we probably need to get 2, 3, 4 guys from the portal in that, maybe like 5, 6 in the entire secondary. A couple at the corner spot, and he's a guy that we're looking at that definitely we could add to as well. And then another name, Robert Stafford, who is actually, this is a really interesting kid, 4-star recruit out of high school, went to Miami. I guess it just hasn't really worked out at Miami, but he's definitely a kid that could help us. Mike Loxley likes getting some of these guys that were talented before but haven't really worked out where they've been, and he's a guy that was just like that, from Florida again, went to Miami, didn't work out, 4-star recruit. Definitely a guy that maybe still has talent, and maybe Mike Loxley can end up tapping into a little bit, which I do think is important for Maryland football. And then, of course, yesterday I talked about Mansour Delane. he's going to be really tough to get because right now he's the number 2 corner on the transfer portal, and he's the 26th ranked corner or 26th overall player in the transfer portal. So some of the big boys are going to be after him. But he's a DMV kid, had Maryland in his top schools when he was coming out of high school. So I do think could potentially get in the mix. I talked about him yesterday, so make sure you guys go check out yesterday's episode if you're curious about getting him. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.